it gives me immense pleasure in talking to you all for the 50th program of the IIF Chennai Chapter this year. So this is indeed a landmark milestone, and call it anything. So to get this started, I now welcome our Chennai Chapter Chairman, Mr. Saktivel Tirunavukarasu, to welcome the gathering.
Good evening, Malai Vanakkam. Please reciprocate. Good evening. Thank you. So we thought of put a very big target of making 50 this year, every week one program. We had a very good strategy. We joined with MMA. So they've been contributing one program every month. So that is the story how we are completing 50th. As Vignesh said, is of course a milestone. We never did beyond 12 or 13 every year. This year is a 50 only on these programs alone. So that is credit goes to all the council members and who put up on a hard work to this stage. So that is it. Number one, aptly I have been talking with the MMA. We know that we are going to make it 50. So nearing that, I said I need some good topics to be the apt subject also to make it good. So they come up with the SARS program, making it India 2047. Immediately I said, yes sir, we are going for this topic. So that is what today we are here. Okay, beyond that, what is that India 2047? What is going to put up or going to take us towards that milestone? Because it's going to be, we are going to celebrate 100th Independence Day on 2047. First, I didn't stuck to me. What is the significance of, because Abdul Kalam is saying 2020. What is the significance? Just suddenly it struck me, oh, this is 100th year of celebration. So what is going to make it to that level of 2047? So in my opinion only, I think three things is going to take forward to us. First is a country which is diversified ethnic groups, maybe religion, culture, language, so many things are there. And what makes us integral, that integrity should be intact till that time. So what makes us integral? So in my opinion, how many of you know that what makes this country integral is only our Constitution of India? I don't know how many of you have read it through that Constitution. In a preamble, they have given clearly what is the citizens required. They are promising this and that and that. Please go through. And also there are central, state and concurrent subjects. They are promising what the citizen, government has to do it for the citizen. So that is what keeping this country intact. That is my opinion, sir. Maybe people can differ on that. Actually, that is what the subject it is making. As long as the Constitution has been followed and without making any changes, they have thought of so many things in that. We can make only amendment. You can't change any constitution. Contributing to that, not contradicting. That is also. When you're doing a contradicting amendment, Supreme Court will see that, strike it down. So that was a constitution that much strong, that is what making us forward. Okay, what is the point number 2? Every individual Indian wants to improve himself. Improve himself. That is what driving this country to the next stage. Everyone wants to be better. Everyone want to have a mindset to improve themselves. And 3, the sacrifice of the seniors in the first or second generation of the family system to sacrifice, to see that my sons and daughter to be poised. I should give a better education to them. I should give a better environment to them. That is what going to keep us moving towards the target of 2047. So with that, I am completing my welcome address. I now request our, among us today we have, so fortunate today have our National Past President Mr. Sanjay Shroff here among us. So he is going to come after me to deliver his address.
To make this 50th program even more special, we are blessed and humbled to have the presence of our National Past President, Mr. Sanjay Shroff. To introduce him to the gathering, I now request Mr. Siddharth Anbaselvan, Council Member, IIF Chennai Chapter, to do the needful.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone active in the evening, Saturday evening. So a few words about our past president, Sanjay Shroff. He's an entrepreneur hailing from a business family. He has 3 decades of senior management experience in the fields of marketing, technical, finance, and administration. He's a science graduate from the University of Madras. He is widely traveled and brings with him rich experience in international as well as domestic business. He runs a successful foundry additives business in Chennai, and the company supplies to leading casting manufacturers all over the country. He is the past president at the Institute of Indian Foundrymen. In his tenure, he introduced many innovations in the largest all-India conference that happened yearly. He also introduced many noteworthy reforms and helped establish many best practices in the association. He is also a technology enthusiast. Mr. Shroff runs an internet services company with his brothers, runs a successful health website, madeindia.net, which receives 30 plus million visits yearly. It ranks among the top 30 health websites internationally. And an entrepreneur at heart, he is a charter member of TIE, the largest entrepreneurship network, and has made his mark there with his valuable contributions. He was instrumental in the revival of the Chennai chapter of TIE in the year 2005-06, served as vice president of TIE from 2007 to 9. His entrepreneurial spirit has seen him mentor many budding entrepreneurs and helping them build large businesses. He balances his life by remaining socially active and is currently the president of Madras Gymkhana Club, Chennai. An avid sports person, he has keen interest in most sports and continues to be a passionate golfer. I think he's almost like, instead of jack of all trades, master of all trades. So please welcome, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you, Sid, for the introduction. So, at the outset, I want to thank Mr. Shaktivel for inviting me to be the chief guest of this evening. I'm privileged to be here amidst the August gathering. And also a well-known author and coach, distinguished speaker, Mr. Pattabhiram, who will talk about India 2047. So I'd like to take this opportunity and place on record the appreciation of the work executed by the chairman, Mr. Shaktivel, and his team, and give him a real loud applause for the spirit and dedication in having conducted 50 programs. Believe me, it's not easy, right? And there are great lessons to be learned from him, honestly. So I am reminded a little bit about my tenure as the TIE, member in 2005-07, when I had to revive the chapter, right? So we were at 0, and in the first year itself we achieved 30 programs, and in the next year we achieved the 50 programs. But I know how difficult it is, and I know what pain you need to go through to actually achieve this milestone. The most important thing is ideas are generated every day by everybody, according to me, right? But only some become successful, not all ideas. And I think the reason for these ideas to become successful, according to me, is passion, relentless execution, absolutely having great energy. That's very, very important. The tenacity for you to live through all the troughs and crests that you see. Because there will be always ups and downs, right? And for you then to carry on this as your objective is what makes great leaders. Okay? Because great leaders translate vision into reality. Any company, you have an objective, it has to translate into reality. Only then it becomes successful. And that's what Shakti has done. He has a day job like all of us have. He's probably busier than us. But he finds the time in that busy schedule to carry on this activity, because ultimately it's the leader who's responsible, right? To inspire his team to perform and come to this level. So great work. Kudos to you. And I can only tell you that this year's of Chennai chapter, the activity definitely will rank among the best in the last, from the time Chennai chapter has, come into formation. So I think one more round of applause will be great for him. So when he asked me to be the chief guest about this topic, it got me pondering. So should I be a forecaster or should I envision what India is? Then I said, we have a distinguished speaker, right? So I think I'll leave it to him to talk about India 47. So what I decided is that I'll probably get a little away from the topic in terms of what is it that you need to do for India for 2047 to be really glorious, right? So I felt that I would go on a path where I talk about we as a nation, we as people, what do we need to do that our generations that are going to follow actually enjoy that 2047? That's very important. And you got to leave behind. I mean, some of us probably will live to see that, some of us may not, right? However, we need to take that effort today. Unless we take that effort today, the 2047 for your future generations may not be the best. We all have our own busy schedules and pressures, daily work. So one of the most important things, according to me, is to get conscious of the climate change. Because the people are talking about climate change. A lot of people think it's a distant future. But believe me, it's not only reached your home, but it's already in your drawing room. And it'll engulf all of us. So I would like to take a cue from what Japan did as a nation, I'm saying. It's a very important lesson. 1945, atomic bomb, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, completely devastated. They lost the World War II. They aligned with the wrong. They allied with the wrong country. They were beaten black and blue. Okay, so their national pride was at the lowest. The country's infrastructure was at the lowest. That was 1945. Today, they are among the top 5, and they're basically number 3, right? They don't have any natural resources. Small country, small population. But look at what they've done. Because they came together as a nation, one. They prided themselves in their nation. They said, if the nation prospers, we will prosper. Otherwise, it will not happen. When they first went to General Motors to talk about a car, to get the technology, they laughed. General Motors laughed at them, right? And one fine day, Toyota was bigger than all the car companies of the US. And so our chairman talked about India's diversity. Right? We as a nation are diverse, but we are one. What keeps us one could be debated on so many, there's so many aspects which we could talk about, but we are still one. But that's not enough. Believe me. The unity has to be much, much more. our national pride has to come not from our nationalism, oh, I'm a nationalist. No. Our pride and the unity has to come from our work and how we help each other. Only when we help each other will we be able to actually help this nation. And for that, it's important that we find unity in the diversity. It can't be just a slogan, because we Indians, I think, nowadays are very popular using slogans, and we pat ourselves very quickly. But believe me, we got to dig deeper into that. Only then will we actually rise as a nation. There are great opportunities for India. I have no doubt that this nation has a great future, right? But unless we work towards this, and in that, climate change, according to me, is one very important factor, because only we are progressing now, we are developing now. It is easier for us to go for sustainable manufacturing, sustainable living, because the country is now budding, it's growing, right? And for us to reach there actually is not going to be very difficult. Like they say that pollution equipments and putting pollution machineries is definitely far cheaper in India, because when India could launch a space program which costs 1/6 of what NASA would cost, I'm sure we can do this, right? Because it's said that in order to combat climate change, the world would spend $178 trillion in the next, from now to 2050. But the question is that it's not about money, it's about the world, right? And we need to do it before it's too late. India is rapidly growing in automobile, in manufacturing, but we really need to be conscious as to how we can make this whole existence, very, very sustainable. So I'll just give you an example of EVs. In 2021, there were 1.4 billion vehicles on the road, of which no more than 1% was electric. Even if the global road fleet were to stop growing, decarbonizing 50% of it by 2030, it would require that we manufacture about 600 million new electric passenger vehicles in 9 years. That is about 66 million a year, more than the total global production of all cars in 2019. In addition, the electricity to run those cars would have to come from zero carbon sources. And what are the chances of that? Currently, it's very bleak. So therefore, while we are very gung-ho about electrical, we are very gung-ho about renewables, we also have to take into consideration whether the earth has that much of minerals and metals to allow you to produce batteries and to allow you to produce all these things. So therefore, I think the larger companies really need to think through. They really need to put in a lot of money in R&D, and they really need to go after it. Relentless execution is what will give us success. The smaller companies can't do that. It's the larger companies that needs to do that, take the lead, okay, and then handhold the smaller companies. We need to go together as a nation. China's, one of the reasons that they have grown is because they're all together. Okay? Their competition is not the person next door. Their competition is another country, India, America, Europe. Okay? So they go as one nation. They don't go, oh, I'm a competitor. No. In fact, they go out of the way to help. Right? So that's what we need to do. And that's what I talked about, unity. So what's the solution about this? I'm not getting into specifics for climate change. So they are balancing the reliance on fossil fuels, greater energy efficiency, renewable energy, sustainable transportation, very, very important. when Metro got launched in Chennai, there were hardly any takers. But now I find lots of takers. I use, whenever I'm coming alone, I have no baggage. I use the Metro to come home. So we all really need to get conscious of our daily lives. Sustainable buildings, better forestry management and sustainable agriculture, conservation-based solutions, industrial solutions, technological solutions, and other choices. So I feel that the high net worth, there are now a lot of high net worth individuals in the country, a lot of large corporates, and I think that they can actually do a lot for this country. If you really want to see a glorious 2047, we all need to get conscious in our daily lives. You want to leave a good, we are all very fond of our children, grandchildren, and we want to do the best for them. And though that best is within the confines of the four walls of our house. But what I'm saying is, we need to go beyond that four walls. Only then they'll have a beautiful future. If there's no water and they're struggling, imagine what life. They might have millions of dollars in their, you left millions of dollars of fixed deposits for them. But they don't have water, they don't have electricity. What future are you talking about? What 2047 are we talking about, right? So that's why I think it's important that we get conscious of this. Like I said, I wanted to leave the, what glorious future India has to Mr. Pattabhiram, and I want to leave you with a quote which says, the best way to predict future is to create it. So let's all create an exciting 2047. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanjay sir, to have enlightened us on what we should do as a nation to have a glorious 2047, India in 2047. To now have our glorious speaker for the day, I now request Mr. P. Senthil Kumar, Honorary Treasurer, IIF Chennai Chapter, to introduce our speaker for the day.
Good evening, one and all. Ellorkum Malai Vanakkam. I am pleased and privileged to introduce our today's speaker to the others gathering. Mr. P. Pattabhiram is as an author. I think he is our fourth author who is delivering the speech in this place. And he is a public speaker and teacher and practicing CA. He has taught over 75,000 CA students. So number is user. Spoken at various fora and co-founded a public accounting firm. His teaching subjects includes cost accounting and strategic financial management. In his firm, he handles valuation strategy and growth reports. As a speaker, he speaks on finance and technology and has spoken on frauds and forensics in the Middle East and in India, including at the World Bank. In 2022, two of his books were published by Rupa. Tech Phonics is written with T.N. Manoharan, and it captures Satyam's 100-day turnaround. I understand Mr. T.N. Manoharan is board of that board. His insights is brought in. The second book is The Great Bank Robbery, which talks about chronicle 11 bank scams in the post-independent India. So the forum is yours. Please take over. Thank you.
Good evening to all of you. Nice being here today, and I think I must first and foremost compliment you guys for doing 50 programs. That's a huge number, and I feel very privileged that I would be the 50th speaker. That adds to the honor. What I'm going to talk to you today across the next 20-25 minutes is captured in a book by the same name. It was authored by me along with Dr. Anbuthambi. I thought I'll very quickly give you the backdrop, the context, so that you would be able to appreciate what I say across the next 20-25 minutes. We ran an All India contest. We invited people to write. Out of 160 people who participated, we shortlisted 25 of them who had written on various topics. We had 27 topics written out there. The very first topic was what you spoke about, pluralism. The very third topic was what you spoke about, climate change. And then based on the inputs, we had the entire thing written up. This presentation today and the book basically captures the dream of young Indians. The average age of the various whom we call proud contributors is about 33. and it would have been much lower if I was not part of the team. And it therefore basically talks about what kind of vision that they have for India. It does not necessarily speak of whether all of that would get achieved or not get achieved. But the premises, incidentally, I should also tell you that each one of the contributors had a mentor who spoke to them in terms of what is workable, what is not workable. For example, in the space of manufacturing technology, we had Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, former Vice Chairman of Cognizant, being a mentor. In the chapter on judiciary, we had a sitting High Court judge of the Odisha High Court being a mentor, and so on. That's the broad background. I think I'll get started. I'll begin by telling you that if you were to just imagine that for the next 25 years, you are not in India. Decide for a moment that you have decided to go to the United States or to Europe or to any other country, and that 25 years later, you land up in our country in 1947. How would it look like? That's going to be the crux of it. First and foremost, when you land in India, unlike what you see today, depending upon which part of India you are going to reach, you'll have to reset your watch differently. India will have two standard times, the regular Indian standard time, and you'll have another IST2. The IST2 will apply to the northeast. The northeast, for example, today, the sun rises much early in the northeast, and the sun sets very early in the northeast. So what essentially happens is that somewhere from around 3:34 in the evening, there's no adequate light, and science tells us that you work best when the lights are on, when the sunlight is on, which basically means that until 10 o'clock of the regular Indian time, or 9:30 of the regular Indian time, which is almost 5.5–6 hours since it actually rises in the northeast, they're not actually at work. Now, once that is recalibrated, reset, productivity would increase. What is the quantum of increase in productivity? I'm not getting into. All that I'm trying to say is that by 2047, if not much earlier, we'll have two standard times, one for the rest of the country and a second for the northeast. The next important thing that will happen as you step out of, say, an aircraft, when you step out of an aircraft and get into India, you will first have retina-driven immigration, which means no passports, no documents, no nothing. As you walk through, your retina gets scanned, you're identified in terms of who you are. And many of the things that I'm talking about are not things that are being shot in the dark. Some of these things have already begun to happen in different airports in our country. Another important thing that would happen is that in the aircraft, you will be given a token which will indicate as to what exactly is the time that you can actually pick up your baggage. Today, for example, whenever I travel, I always found, and I'm not exaggerating, I've always found that my luggage actually comes the very last. I once went, if it applies to everybody, then there's a problem there. Anyways, once when I went abroad, my client said, you must travel business class. I said, no, I'm comfortable, economy is fine with me. He said, no, you must travel business class. So I told myself, hey, this time my luggage is going to come up first. And it was all stuck, priority, etc., etc. I landed up in Dubai. No, it was not in Dubai. I landed in Muscat, and it went round and round and round and round, and this time my luggage did not come at all. So I went to the guy and said, look, my luggage has not landed. I've traveled business class. He said that, no, please go and check there. That's a place where luggage often falls out of what is that called? Conveyor belt. It often falls there. If it has not fallen there, then come to me. I went there, it had actually fallen there. So ever since then, I have this huge fascination that no, people must be told when their luggage is actually landing, and it must come exactly at that particular point in time. And I think long before 2047 that will happen. A third important thing is that today we have in Chennai our black and yellow cars, the old, I don't know whether they're the Fiat or the Ambassador or whatever. I think all of them will undergo a change. BMW is just a phrase that one of our writers put out there. It's not necessary that they would be BMW cars, but they will all be, by and large, predominantly either self-driven cars, or they would be independent vehicles which actually don't need drivers to drive. That's again not something that's very far off. Mr. Shroff talked about electric vehicles. Today, for example, the kind of electric EVs that have come in is so remarkably different compared to what we thought would happen. So many things today are happening at a much, much faster pace than what the human mind anticipates. There was a time in this world when you thought something will happen, it will take 10 more years to happen. Today it's actually the other way around. Today things happen much, much faster. I still remember, and normally I don't like to give personal examples, but today I'll give you the second of my personal examples. I wrote a book called The 9 Mega Trends in Higher Education. It was a book that the Niti Aayog, it was a book that the Vice President of India released, and it was done at the behest of the Niti Aayog. I wrote 9 mega trends in higher education, and we had put out there, this will happen 5 years from today, this will happen 7 years from today, and then dramatically COVID came, and everything got fast forwarded. First time when people said, hey, this will not happen, which school will have, which higher education will have, classes, people seated at home, and that's exactly what happened. So all that I'm trying to point out is that many of these things are going to happen much faster than what we anticipate. That was about the airports. As we go on, I'll pick up a few other things. The second one is about roads. On the left side, where you see that red color, that's a symbol for the roads. We are going to see more elevated roads take place. I do not know about what your view is, but as I travel across the length and breadth of our country, in many parts the roads are absolutely fascinating. Why talk about many parts? In our own state, some of those highways are so incredibly wonderful. We'll have more of elevated roads, and my own sense is that the country will push people to not travel individually in a car. I think Mr. Shroff put it right when he said, he takes the metro when he comes from the airport, which saves a lot of fuel in terms of if each one of us is going to drive a car. If we don't do carpooling, it's not just about the cost, it's not just about the fuel, it's also about climate. And one of the ways by which more people will be pushed to travel together is that the tolls, another remarkable thing that has happened in our country, the tolls which will be there not just in the national highways but well inside the cities will pick up how many people are actually inside the car and charge accordingly. The more the number of people inside a car, not more will be the toll charge, but less would be the toll charge. Many of our cars are also going to get solar driven. We are going to see solar power car. My own guess, and I'm no scientist, I'm no technology expert, I'm no engineering expert, but my own sense is that maybe in the next 15 odd years, EVs will become like what our fuel cars now are. They would slowly become a thing of the past. And the stretch is that we will increasingly see solar powered vehicles take place. There is also this talk about, I am personally not very gung-ho about it, but there is already this talk about flying cars coming in, cars that fly. And as somebody once said, what cannot be achieved is only that which cannot be imagined. And if there is something that hits the human mind, it's something that can actually happen. But the other one, the one that's there in the far corner, is something that's almost certain to happen. Buses where you don't sit, okay? Like what happens in our airports when you come from the aircraft to inside the airport. Not most people stand. In almost much the same way, you are going to have vehicles, large buses, where you commute from one place to another. No place to sit. There would be items relating to gyms. There could be the treadmill, there could be the cycle, there could be any of the many other things there, and people will practice fitness. So what happens is that in the 35-40 minutes commute that is between you and the office, that's presuming that you would actually commute to office, and presuming that not a lot more of work will happen, work from home, then those are the kind of vehicles that people will pick up. Okay. we'll move to the third important one where we talk about homes. I again want you to understand, appreciate and recognize that while many of the things might actually look far-fetched, might actually look science fiction like, they're actually not that. For the simple reason that in the case of every chapter, we have had a resident expert who is in that field to vet, because my first mandate to them was to tell that while you shall allow flight of fancy by us the writers, you shall also ensure that we just don't go about completely fanciful. So some of the things that are stated here have been completely vetted. One of the first things that's likely to happen is that you will have mobile homes. Mobile homes would mean that homes are ordered, okay? Homes are ordered on Amazon, or homes are ordered on Reliance if Reliance turns out to be bigger than Amazon, and then you get parcels of land where you can actually quickly fit or assemble these CKD kind of homes that will be available, okay? Which would also mean that what is going to then become important is only land space, which means that if I have set up my, just to give an example, if I bought a home and assembled it on a piece of land in Annanagar, at some point in time, 6 years later, I feel, oh, Annanagar is too crowded for me, let me move somewhere else. I might move somewhere else and take it along with me after disassembling it and putting it out. That also gives another flexibility. The other flexibility that it gives is that summertimes when the kids or the grandchildren come home, you can reposition it in a way that some rooms become bigger and some rooms become smaller. We're also talking about smart glasses that actually control light, okay? That control how much light can come in, how much of sunlight can come in. The great advantage of that would be there'd be a huge cut in electricity costs. These are what are called smart glasses. Then today many of us live in what are they called? Community living or large housing apartments, some 1,500 houses, 2,000 houses. My own sense is that that would also be the order of the day. But what is also going to increasingly happen is that you're going to have cameras that will actually recognize who the owners are, who is the owner to that particular place, and allow just the owner to be able to open the doors and walk inside his home. Another important thing that's already on, not my guess, intelligent restrooms, where which can actually detect health issues that you might have, which can then be a precursor to you deciding to go meet a doctor. The last one is actually very, very important. All of us are aware that increasingly the average age of the Indian is going up. Not just the average age of the Indian, increasingly the average age of the world population itself is going up. What would be the good number of years to live? Anybody? How long would you like to live? 300 years. Hey, who is that? You want to live 300 years?
That's what the DNA says. Your DNA has got capacity to do up to 10 years.
Okay. 90 years you want to live? Okay. Body is designed for 120 years. All right. So the average age of the Indian as per the stat today is around 73, 74 today, but we all know lots of people who live into their 80s and very, very healthy, and many are also starting to live into their 90s. But with the, I don't know whether I'm right in saying that, but in the disintegration of the, what should I say, joint family system, if I could call it that, and the complete nuclearization of Indian families, I don't want to pick issues with anybody, just the fact that that's the new reality. You will have lots of elderly people around who will need help, and the talk of the town is that a lot of robos are going to be around that will help. You know, in the last 6 months, a remarkably wonderful AI tool has hit the world at a time when people were all talking about artificial intelligence, where said this could happen, that would happen, this would happen, that would happen. Now, ChatGPT, for example, has shown us straight in our tables as to what can happen. Yes, there are lots of pluses and minuses to it, but the point is that in our very lifetime, we have started to see the remarkable thing that machines can actually do. How much of that is good, how much of that is safe is of course debatable. So elder care is going to take place. People talk about robots assisting children to do their homeworks. There's already a company in the US, that name just popped out of my head, has gone off my head, which actually makes its fortune or makes its living or sustains because it helps students do their homework. Now, I'm told that the first casualty of ChatGPT is that company. So increasingly you will see this happen. I talked to you first about the airports, I then talked to you about roads, then I spoke to you about homes. We'll go on to the fourth one. We'll talk about smart cities. This, of course, all of us are aware. A lot of conversation has happened around it. A lot of expectations were there. Some of them have materialized, some of them have not materialized in terms of the number of cities that would go smart. But the very fact that there are many things that have actually turned out smart in our country is remarkable. And I think that incidence will continue. Already we are seeing, what should I say, one card being used across all transports. Increasingly more and more smartness will happen in our everyday life. We will have metros as clean as they look. My own personal desire, I don't know how far that is good, my own personal desire is that I should see on Indian roads somebody not yelling at the other, that I should see on Indian roads nobody overtakes you on the left, that I should see on Indian roads that a 2-lane actually has 2 lanes, not 6 lanes cutting out there. And if these can happen internationally, they can happen in India as well. All that will require, of course, a lot of civic sense, and equally importantly, it will require how well or how quickly a breaker of law gets punished by the law enforcing agencies. The next important area we'll talk about is in terms of healthcare. No, I think we're talking about entrepreneurship, and then maybe we'll talk about healthcare. Many of you here are entrepreneurs, so I don't want to say too much out there, but trust me when I tell you that automation is happening in a very, very, very big way. AI has begun to take away quite a bit of jobs in some of the companies that I've actually spoken to. I come from an accounting and audit and therefore a service sector background. I have had occasion the last 3-4 years to talk to, as part of my writing engagement, to talk to a lot of CEOs, CFOs, and many people in the BPOs are actually telling me that they have already begun to wean out 30% of their workforce, and many of that has got automated, and across the next 3, 4, 5 years they will also have robots working. Robots will work in banks. Depending upon how you want to look at your company, you will see increasingly automation taking place. The third point is a point that we picked up from what we have seen happen in Chennai. For example, and this is not a new idea, it's a 50-year-old idea. It's brought in from the concept of the industrial estate that I think Tamil Nadu was maybe I might be wrong, but I think it was among the first states to propagate it. I'm calling that clusters. You will see a lot of clusters getting formed. That means, to put it in more Chennai phrase, you will see a lot of industrial estates coming up, industrial estates that focus on pharma, another industrial estate that focuses on EV, an industrial estate that actually focuses on IR 4.0, Industrial Revolution 4.0, some that actually focus on research and development. So you will see a lot of specialized clusters coming up with a lot of government backing. And it is good and very interesting to realize that last year, or maybe this year, Tamil Nadu actually announced a slew of clusters to come up. My guess is that a lot of engineering colleges will get pruned down. My guess is that this focus on lots of education is going to get pruned down. The focus on knowledge as opposed to skill is going to get pruned down. We might therefore see 3-year engineerings come up, which is what during my growing up years we call the polytechnics. It's quite likely that could come up. It is also likely that a lot of money could get spent in improving the ITI sector in our country, and that would actually mean that good workforce comes into the workplace adequately skilled, instead of coming there and learning and you having a learning curve as you absorb them. That hopefully would not happen. I'll very quickly move on to a couple of other things. Healthcare. This is a part that was actually co-written by a doctor, vetted also by the Vice Chancellor of the Tamil Nadu MGR Medical University, and what is widely expected to happen by 2047 is personalized medicine. I'll very quickly give you what's meant by personalized medicine. In the world of medicine, people say that my cancer, the cancer that I have, is very different from the cancer that Mr. X has, very different from the cancer that Mr. Y has. Doctors all of us loosely use the word he has cancer, whereas the cancer that each person faces, the trouble that each person faces is very different. Forget cancer, take a more simple thing like diabetes, where India happens to be the global headquarters. The diabetic situation for different people is very different, which basically means that medication for different people has to be different. We are now talking about targeted medicine. That means the medicine for Mr. X is very different from the medicine for Mr. Y. That's what we are talking about as personalized medicine. There is also this wide talk that all of us have been to these McDonald's or these fast food joints where every fast food joint looks very, very similar. Which was the last fast food place you went and ate? Other than McDonald's? KFC, Burger King, or everyone, or take Adayar Anand Bhavan, though that's not a fast food joint perhaps. Everything looks very similar. Now, there are conversations that are taking place that you will have these kind of the McDonald's, small outfit which standardizes everything. You'll have that kind happen to hospitals. So you'll see increasingly lot more hospitals take up, not the big ones, the small ones, specialized ones, what I call the McDonald type hospitals happening. Okay. There is also this talk, he said about 300 years. Okay. If we can all stay hale and hearty as long as we live, that's great. There is already a lot of conversation that talks about reverse aging. I'm not technically competent to speak about that, but what I can tell you is that medical science is working on pills that will tell nanobots that are inserted into the human being to form new neurons whenever the existing brain cells die. And people say that this is going to reverse aging. Like when I was growing up, I used to think the guy in the 50s is very old, he looks very old. Today the guy in the 50s does not look very old, not because I'm in that age group, but even otherwise. Today a guy, you can hardly make a difference even if a guy is 70 years old. People are living far more healthily, and that's likely to happen in the years ahead. Can we quickly move on? I think we'll skip that. I think we'll skip that also. I think a lot of change is already taking place. Okay, then let's go to education. We'll just spend a couple of minutes on education and then I'll close out. Education is an area that's dear to my heart, largely because I have spent a very large part of my adult life teaching students. I taught, I don't do that now, I taught between 6:15 to 8:45 in the morning every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the last 25 years. Okay, so that's something that's very close to my heart, and my own sense is that there is going to take place, and it's already started to happen, public-private partnership in primary education. I have strongly believed that governments must not be into business. Governments must typically be only into 3-4 areas, if you call them businesses. One of them is primary healthcare, second of them is primary education, third, of course, is law and order. These are the 3 principal areas that it ought to be in. And we are likely to see public-private partnerships in primary education. Imagine the large number of corporation schools that are there in our city. Many of them are simply weeding out. Just imagine a situation where the government partners with private players. Could be under the NGO route, could be under CSR route, where well-established, well-run companies take up ownership to run those schools. Imagine what kind of transformation that it can bring about. That is for sure going to happen. You're also going to see, this has already begun to take place, you're going to see online laboratories, no physical laboratories, online laboratories happening as a part of learning. And last but most importantly, though it might not be relevant for anyone here, you will see exams take place anytime, anywhere. I'll just move on to the very last thing, and then whatever questions you have, you could ask me, move forward. One of the last things that will happen, it's already started happening, is that the government will monetize many of its assets. It will monetize many of its buildings. It's already begun that process with in the case of the railways. It will monetize many of its assets, and like I said a little while earlier, it will get out of running businesses wherever it is running businesses. Now it's already gotten out of airline business. It will slowly get out of every line of business, and my own sense is that it should stay with, like I said, primary education, and like I said, healthcare. Can we go to the last one? No. Forward. Yeah. Now, this is a summary. This is a summary of what one visualizes India would be in terms of performance metrics. I'll begin from the last. India is likely to be the first choice destination for many businessmen, and my desire would be that we also become the first choice destination not only for technology, not only for manufacturing, not only for healthcare as it is increasingly becoming, but also for education. You will have a lot of educated people and who are skilled and more importantly cultured. When I use the word culture very, very, very carefully, meaning with a lot of responsibility, because the kind of conversations that you're seeing today on national television, the kind of conversation that you're seeing today on social media is not the kind of conversation with which our generation grew up. None of our generation grew up saying adult use war of words anywhere, and that culture will be back, and lot many people are going to look at education not just as graduation, but what is the skill that they possess when they come to the workplace. The medical field, for example, is already talked about having 1 full year of internship over and above the 6 months house surgency that they are talking about. My own profession, the profession of chartered accountancy, has now scaled down to say that there will be 2 years of articleship and 1 year of mandatory work with people. Okay, so that's going to happen. The third important thing is that a large part of India would become smart. We would hopefully be the second largest economy in the world. That's not going to be very, very difficult. We'll hopefully be the second largest economy in the world. The only thing that is very questionable that people today think, hey, that's impossible to happen, is that will we be a $50 trillion economy? Many estimates have been made, and in line with the nature of the book, that it is dream tempered with some kind of realism, I think many of us will happy to see a $50 trillion economy. It's a very, very wild card because we are nowhere even near a $5 trillion economy. By modern estimates, we'll become a $5 trillion economy by maybe 2030, and $10 trillion economy by 37, $20 trillion economy by 44, $40 trillion economy by 51, by the sheer law of arithmetic. So if you're talking about a $40 trillion economy by sheer arithmetic, that means by sheer growth by 2047, 50, then pushing that extra edge, doing all the many things that the government talks about, leading to becoming a first choice destination, leading to becoming a skill driven economy, leading to becoming a smart economy, I think there's every possibility that we will be a $50 trillion economy. I only hope that many of us actually get down to see that day. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. An intelligent restroom would typically mean that once you pee or once you go for the loo, and the, what should I say, the commodes that are now there, they'll be smart enough to recognize whether your health is good or not good. So if there is some indication that you might, that Mr. X might develop a certain thing, that could happen. People are talking about its ability to start with, its ability to test positive for pregnancy, and then slowly over a period of time, other things. And none of that is imaginary. All of what I have talked about is backed by work that is happening.
And you mentioned about the monetization of assets. On the one hand, if you look at internationally, whether it is China or Middle Eastern countries, Norway, Singapore, etc., they're going towards sovereign wealth fund, wherein the surplus or part of the funds is getting accumulated for the citizens' welfare in the long term. Whereas India does the opposite by monetization, isn't it? Why there is...
no, what is that first? Monetization of...
See, all the other countries are going for sovereign wealth fund, wherein they're creating wealth for the citizens.
Like
whereas
what?
if you take the case of a Singapore or a Norway or any Middle Eastern country or a China, etc.
What I have not understood is, are you saying that they are providing money for the elderly? Is that what you're saying?
They're creating wealth for the future through sovereign wealth fund. If you look at it, there's accumulation. Many are $1 trillion sovereign wealth funds. If you take the case of a Saudi or Abu Dhabi or China, everywhere they're having $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund, where they're accumulating the surplus of the economy.
They are accumulating money.
Whereas we are doing on the reverse, whatever wealth the government has, it's simply selling off and transferring for by revenue expenditure, by monetization.
Okay, no, whether it goes to revenue expenditure, whether it is going to bridge our deficit, etc., is part one of the story. Part two of the story, and that's largely because the deficits are huge. But that need not necessarily be the thing. What I'm saying, what I was trying to say is that there are assets that are really maybe not required. So, okay, let me give you a quick parallel, because this cuts both ways. Let's say I have a lot of jewelry at home. Now, is jewelry an asset or is it an expenditure is a very debatable question. Because if you have no intention to sell your jewel at any point in time, if you have no intention to sell your gold at any point in time, it can hardly be called an asset. It then becomes an expenditure. Unless you say that, no, at some point in time, if something happens, then I will sell, that's it. Okay? Now, there are assets that don't earn the country, don't earn the government much. Those are the assets that we are talking about as monetizing. Okay, those are assets that we are talking about monetizing. How the monetized money gets used is a separate story. Whether the monetized money is used to create more hospitals, whether the monetized money is used to create education, whether it goes into social welfare is a separate point.
Okay. The last one, of course, is the foresight is very wonderful. But if you look at the reality today, the government has invoked the National Security Act to provide food for 80 crores, something 2 out of 3 Indians. Where you look at it when it comes to the inclusiveness, whether it's going to be only a part of the section of the people who is going to see the riches, or it's going to the entire community at large?
Let me rephrase that question to know whether I've understood it right. You are saying that food subsidization is being provided?
Not subsidy, it's a free food.
Okay, all right. I agree, got it. Free food for 80 crore people. Let's say 80 crore people. Your question is whether it should go to the 150 crore, or your question is whether the 80 crore giving free food is a sustainable thing.
Whether what happens to 80 crore, whether they will be part of the benefits what we are seeing, or whether they will end up receiving the subsidy at large?
No, the law, see, the law, let me put it this way. When the midday meal scheme was initiated long years ago, maybe 40 years ago or whatever, people questioned it. But some of the benefits that came out of that was that lot many people went to schools. That means our gross enrollment ratios went up. Tamil Nadu was one of the major beneficiaries. Lot many people... yeah, so what I'm saying is that whether something constitutes a freebie or not, or whether some such kind of spending should be done or not, is a very debatable thing, in the sense that each man who runs the state we'll have to take a call on. If you ask me, should we permanently have a midday meal scheme? No, I'm coming to that. Permanently have a midday meal kind of scheme? The answer is no, because the long-term idea of all that is that more people come into the mainstream, more people get educated, more people begin to earn. So in terms of long-term, it is not good that this should continue. Okay, it's not good that this should continue, but some of these schemes are actually required. They are the kind of, somebody might call it expenditure, somebody might decide to say that it's an investment for the future. So there are many ways of looking at that. Okay. The other thing is look at healthcare, for example. Just imagine today how prohibitively expensive healthcare is, and no, beyond a certain point in time, I would actually ideally like that a lot of healthcare is taken by the government. I'm actually very, very comfortable with the idea that the government decided to provide that, what scheme is that called, Ayushman Bharat. So there are different pockets of people who require different kinds of support. I would think that it is important that they are there, but those kind of things must stop at some stage. The idea is that the community grows, and then at some particular point in time say, this is not needed. Does that answer?
Because my point was that for the 80 crore people, it's a question of affordability, not a question of sort of attraction like like scheme to attract.
No, I agree with you that no, it should not be allowed to everybody.
They're going to come up because today there is sort of a gap.
No, I again didn't.
Inequity is there.
Inequity is. Yeah.
See, as per the data, nearly more than 70% of the wealth of this nation in the hands of 1% of the population.
That's what only.
Not worldwide, I'm not in India.
That is everywhere, I'm saying.
I'm not bothered about others. No, but as I'm now, I want to first clean up my house, then I look up the street. Okay, I'm talking about the nation. Okay, I want to talk about the first nation, then we talk about other country. As far as for India, that 1% of the population having the nearly more than 75% of the wealth of this nation. Okay, it's a biggest lopsided development. No, I don't want to argue that. My question is, what will be 2047?
No, that will be there. Maybe 75% might come down, may come to 65%.
Yeah.
For example,
But it's not coming down during the COVID situation. Again, it has been exaggerated.
I'll tell you why that is. Yes, sir.
The GDP per capita is expected to be $50,000.
50.
1.5. So which is significantly what the development.
No, his issue is that 15,000 is because somebody is here and somebody is there.
No, that's because it's a free economy.
Not only, yeah, that plus the fact that if there are two people, what do you do?
Me, I was a corporate in the senior position, now I am in education.
You are in education, as in what do you do?
I'm the principal of healthcare,
All right.
not a science graduate.
No, what I'm saying is that it is the law of, if you decide to have a free economy or a free market, it is a law of the land, it's not. It is the law of nature that somebody will do outstandingly well. What needs to, no, I have no problem if Mr. Ambani earns tons and tons of money. I have a problem only if he has earned the wrong way and as a government you sit back and do nothing. So you cannot say everybody should earn the same thing.
We do not know. It will come out after some time.
Could come on. If there is an issue with that, I think we should have a problem.
Sitting, sleeping, or keeping quiet or something will come to a later part.
That's an administration issue.
No, what I am saying, my point is that there are only some people who have been able to accumulate wealth is not an indication that those people have done it the wrong way. If they have done it the right way, that's perfectly fine. And merely, otherwise what will happen is that we'll end up saying everybody is equal, let's give everybody equal amount of money to start with. As I read somewhere, let us for a moment assume that today the country decides all money is taken away, like rough form of demonetization. Give 10 lakhs to each person. Mine is an exaggerated example, but I'm trying to drive a point. 10 years from today, Mr. Ambani from 10 lakhs will go to 100 lakhs. Whereas people like me will from 10 lakhs maybe go to 25 lakhs. The point that I'm trying to make is that some people are capable of taking tough decisions, great risks, and therefore they end up earning more.
Can I also add?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Yeah, we need it for the recording.
See, the job of the government is to provide equitable, okay, equitable education, equitable opportunity. Now, how that equitable opportunity, that is what they can do. Like he said, it can't give it an equitable money because that's the part of the free economy, how you use that opportunity. Now, in your own corporate experience, you would have found diverse people having diverse talent, okay, diverse methodology as to how they use that. So therefore, you can't standardize, okay. What you can do is, can you provide, like when international companies were coming into India, what did the Indian companies say in the beginning? No, 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 don't allow them. Subsequently, they said, let it be a level playing field. Now, once that is given, it's individual's choice as to how he or she uses that to make it to whatever levels they want. So therefore, the government's role is only that. And we all need to ensure that the government does that. And which is what he talked about. Governments should never be in business because that's not their job. Their job is governance. Their job is to ensure that everybody gets primary health care because that's a fundamental right of every individual. Similarly, education is a fundamental right and it should be given. Now, what you do with your degree, what you do with your education, it all depends on how you run it. So therefore, to make a sweeping statement that it's with 1%, that 1% has used that whatever equitable opportunity everybody had, they better used it. Otherwise, like he said, we'll be insinuating that anybody who makes money is making it the wrong way. So I think we should stay away from that and we should only look at and focus on what is the equitable opportunity that everybody is getting. So there are 100 people who go to a classroom, right? Let's say an IIT, but today you have only about 150, 200 IITians who are global CEOs. The others are not. They all got the same opportunity. So it's a question of how you use the option. That's my
Maybe a quick thing, comment to both of you. So we can have it during dinner. Maybe just a minute.
We'll do the last one.
You're talking of multi-trillion-dollar economy. What we India what they are doing are do somewhat differently to their
India has to work to its strengths. Everybody has to work to their strengths, according to me, right? And each one's strengths are different. Now look at what happened in the 90s, I'm saying. You got the Y2K opportunity. India did a great job in, transition, right? And therefore it became, the IT services became very big. I think India has got a great skill in technology, one. Two, I think it's doing fairly well in education. It needs to be tweaked. And I think that's a very big factor for the growth of the country. Right? It's doing a great job there. Right? And the third thing is the, your healthcare innovations, what the country is doing in terms of medicines, in terms of research, right? They're doing a great job in pharma, right? We are capital. Look at the vaccine, COVID vaccine, what we did was something so brilliant, right? So these are the strengths that we need to work with, right? Subject to we having a stable government. I think that is the key if you ask me. Because if we saw with coalition governments what happened. If we have coalition governments, I think 2047 will have to probably be pushed. Right? So our strengths are these, I think, 3 or 4 areas. And like he said about AI, I think we'll do phenomenally well. These are my thing. And you're seeing today more and more Indians are occupying global positions. Right? Why? It's because of the way this country has education, the way, and the most important thing I think is because of the diverse culture and the way India has been in the last 50, 70 years, I think Indians have developed a great ability to be flexible, the tenacity to, actually handle adverse situations quite well. I think. Look at the traffic, we handle it well.
To now felicitate our illustrious speaker for the day, I now request Mr. Anbaselvan, National Council member, IIF, to felicitate our speaker for the day with the Angavastram, please. Sanjay Shroff, National Past President, IIF, to felicitate our speaker for the day with a memento, please.
Before we conclude, next week Saturday we have our ACM, annual chapter meeting of IIF Chennai Chapter, where the leadership and all the changes is going to take place. Followed by, we have a very good program on self-development. The invitations will come within a couple of days. Please be there to attend. It's for the Chennai members, right? Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, we've had a very interesting program today on the topic India at 2047, the rise of a modern nation. We are sure the contents of the talk had a lot of takeaway for our audience. And it was indeed a very interesting program. As we said earlier, this was our 50th program, a milestone that we are all proud of, and a feather on our cap to our Chennai Chapter Chairman, Mr. Shaktivel. We would like to thank our illustrious speaker for the day, CAV Pattabhiram, chartered accountant, author, and coach, for taking time off his busy schedule and making us rich with knowledge. Further, we'd like to thank all the members who joined us here today, both from the Institute of Indian Foundrymen Chennai Chapter, as well as the MMA members who are here today. Thank you for joining us on time, and we are sure you had a wonderful learning experience. We from Chennai Chapter will be conducting many such more physical and virtual programs, which we'll be sharing information with you soon. Further, I'll just take a quick moment to keep you informed about our IIF Chennai Chapter YouTube channel. So you can just go on and search for IIF Chennai Chapter on YouTube. You will have a content-rich and content-loaded YouTube channel, more than 50 videos, if I'm not wrong, which is being handled by Mrs. Sindhil. So that will be a great takeaway for you as well. Thank you for joining us here today. Thank you so much. Thank you.